All right, back for another beer review, and today I'm reviewing a beer from the Harpoon Brewery, and they're out of both Boston, Massachusetts and Windsor, Vermont, and this is their Moose Rocco beer. So on the label here, it says this ale is brewed with peanut butter, almond, cocoa nibs, and vanilla beans. Comes in at 8% alcohol by volume, 32 IBUs, and at the time of review, this beer is pretty fresh. It gives a best by date of 12/15/18, and we're about 2.5 months removed from then, so we should be good. So Harpoon, this is the first beer I'm reviewing from them on the channel. They don't get great distribution in the Western New York area anymore. I see, like their IPA and maybe some of their seasonals, certainly their UFO. But a lot of their specialty beers, we just don't get them. And I have yet to see this one locally. I actually picked this up last weekend when I was in Rochester, New York, checked out a couple different bottle shops, and this was at AJ's Beer Warehouse. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if we're getting it locally, and it sounds pretty interesting, so I grabbed one. Now, I heard about this beer on social media. I think it was Twitter. A local bottle shop here, Consumer Beverages, they are like a chain of places. Somebody asked them if they were getting this beer, and they're like, yeah, we should see it at some point. But again, I haven't seen it here locally, so I picked one up in Rochester. Now, on the label here, it says, inspired by two classic flavors of ice cream. They don't tell you which flavors, but based on the name, I'd imagine Moose is for Moose Tracks and Rocco is for Rocky Road. Moose Tracks, of course, usually vanilla ice cream with peanut butter cups and fudge, and then Rocky Road is typically chocolate ice cream with crushed nuts, usually almonds are involved, and marshmallow. So yeah, this sounds pretty delicious. They don't call this an imperial stout or a port or anything. It just says it's an ale. So that kind of worries me. I hope they just didn't like bump up a generic, like, I don't know, brown ale recipe and make it imperial brown. I think this would work better as like a porter or stout, but that's why we're gonna try it and review it. So yeah, anyway, let's get it into glass. It also says here at the bottom, don't forget to share some with your cronies. Couple dudes on here. One's enjoying his ice cream, the other one's enjoying a beer, and they're like, oh my God, let's combine those. And I guess they did. So anyway, let's give this a crack. This has been out of the fridge for like 45 minutes, and I think it's like 64 degrees down here today, so it's probably room temperature, close to it. Paul, settle down. Let's give this a pour. Yeah, so that's not an imperial stout at all. This is pouring out like a brown ale. Like I mentioned, carbonation. Look at that terrible pour. Yeah, doing it. Yeah, so I did pour it a bit aggressive, but we have a 73 finger head there. Yeah, but that pours out. That actually looks very, very murky. Wow, I can't even describe that color. It is like this brown mahogany mess of a color for me. It looks crazy. I want to say what it really looks like, but be inappropriate, so I won't. But yeah, has about a 3.5, 4 finger head. As you can see, huge bubbles all over the place. Small bubbles, big bubbles. It's dissipating quite rapidly, but yeah, looks very carbonated as well. But yeah, that if I had to guess a style on this, I would say Imperial Brown Ale based on the ABV, based on the look of it. But yeah, you can see that head is dissipating quite a bit. So anyway, let's get a nose. Oh, okay, it's starting to dissipate, but I was like, I can't really smell a whole lot. I know, a couple finger head now, but still swirling around. First off, it has a touch of booze to it. There's like a little bit of like a alcohol component to it. But then I'm getting like this sweet chocolate vanilla thing going on. I can't really describe it because it doesn't smell like when you have a pastry stout or you just even have some kind of stout or imperial stout that has vanilla and cocoa in it. You kind of get like roasted malt intertwining with different kinds of chocolate and vanilla. It doesn't really smell like that. Definitely getting a nutty vibe from those almonds. That's probably the most prominent character here going back in. As you can see, that head dissipated quite quickly. Honestly, I'm not pulling a lot out here. It definitely has a malt forward component to the nose, but aside from the almond and maybe like a touch of chocolate and vanilla, there's not a lot going on in the nose. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to give it a taste because I can't get much on the nose. The aromatics of this one, not all that vibrant, so let's get into it. Cheers. You can probably see the disappointment on my face. I'm going to go one more sip and then we're going to talk about it. There's a lot going on in here, according to the label, right? There's peanut butter, there's almonds, there's cocoa nibs, there's vanilla beans. I don't know what this beer is trying to be, but whatever it is, I'm not digging it. First off, at 8%, I'm picking up on the alcohol, and it's actually on the palate, which is kind of disappointing nowadays when you taste 8% beers. It's like, yeah, I think that's a 5%er, right? And it almost doesn't matter the style. It's ridiculous that's how it has. It's not a fault to this beer. It's just a fault to how well other breweries are brewing their beer. But let's just first go body mouthfeel. Body is like straight up lower side of medium body. It is a bit thin. Eric, settled down. Paul, 2 thumbs up. It definitely is a bit thin. It's, 8%, so I was hoping for at least a medium body. It didn't even reach that for me. On top of it, the mouthfeel, I was hoping there would be, some creamy vibes. I doubt they're using lactose. Maybe they're using oats. Maybe they're using some kind of wheat in here. But there really is no creaminess to speak of. They're trying to replicate 2 different ice cream flavors. It's not overly carbonated, even though it looked like it on the pour. It was just me aggressively pouring it. It's a bit spritzy. It finishes relatively clean. There's not a lot, aside from that slight alcohol astringency on the back end. Relatively dry. But the body mouthfeel, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I was hoping, I didn't really care how thin this beer was or how the mouthfeel was. I was hoping that those flavors would translate. And for me, they really don't. Maybe your experience would be different with this beer, or if you've had this, I would like to hear about it, because the flavor for me, I'm going to go one more sip here and try to tell you what I'm tasting. It's mostly that nuttiness from the almonds, maybe a slight peanut butter kick to it. The vanilla and the chocolate kind of get lost in translation to the taste from the aroma. But really, there is no like base ale characteristics. That's why I was hoping they would use like a porter or stout. Like maybe there's a touch of caramel, a touch of toffee, maybe a touch of toasted malts. But really the base of this beer, I couldn't tell you what it is, because they don't even tell you, just a generic ale. If I had to guess, I'd say Imperial Brown Ale. But yeah, this is just kind of muddled for me. It's just, there's not a lot going on. It's very disjointed. It doesn't have a great body or mouthfeel, and I'm just not digging this one. I'll still say this, and again, this is my personal opinion. Your mileage may vary. So if you've had this one, let me know what you think about it. But for me personally, I'm not digging this. And there have been beers from Harpoon that I do dig. I know a lot of people will steal a term from Matt over Massive Beer Reviews. They poo-poo on Harpoon. A lot of their offerings for me are just, just middle of the road. I've had a couple that I really do dig, and I've had a couple that I really didn't like. This is going to fall in the latter category. I was hoping for a lot from this beer. When I heard about it, I was pumped. Now drinking it, not so much. Rating-wise, I'm going to barely pass it, because I feel like I could drink this. I just don't want to. I'm going to give that, I'm going to give Moose Rocco from Harpoon, I'm going to give this a 2.75 out of 5. Just not digging it. I forgot to mention this is the 66th, their number 66 in their 100 barrel series, where their brewers play around with different recipes they create, and just they can be innovative and whatnot. It's cool to see them try something crazy like this, but for me, it just doesn't work for my palate, doesn't work for me personally. But like I said, if you've had this, let me know what you think. So anyway, that was Moose Rocco from the Harpoon Brewery. It gets a 2.75 out of 5. Just not for me. Until the next one, cheers.